Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is such an admirable mess. A huge world, million wee subsystems, fantastic art, but it's all over the place. It's kinda hard to discern whether or not you'd warrant it. Do you like a lot of stuff? Well, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a lot of stuff. Maybe like it. It's interesting that in a year where Nintendo have focused on big freeform approach how you like adventures, the most tightly woven, narratively led adventure on the Switch so far would be the new Xenoblade. Zelda and Mario are superb, but there were rarely points in them where I felt like I was in a bit, or that thing A happened, so that thing B happened, and I was curious to see what thing C would be. I mean, as much as I love Breath of the Wild, I missed that linear progression. There's a lot to be said for deliberately paced games and stories, games that constantly incentivise you to play along with it. Sometimes in big open world things, it kind of feels like the game has forgotten about you and you're left wandering around its sitting room. Xenoblade 2's all too keen to smother you in content. Big mad action cutscenes, intricately built towns, massive enemies to fight, warehouses worth of customisation options. There's a lot in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, let's talk about all that anime push. Like everything else in the game, there's a lot of it, and it's not ashamed of it. There's a town of cat people, there's a hot springs scene, and at the start of the game your house dies and turns into a wisecracking Digimon. If you're not into this stuff, Xenoblade 2 will make you very aware of how not into it you are. It's all done so jovially that it's hard to resent it, but it's buried its way so deeply into the tone that enjoying the game definitely says something about your personality. But let's not forget the faithful excuse for playing this obnoxious, fetishy, messy game. It's the sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles, one of the best RPGs ever made. It does that job fairly well. The combat system is easily the most dramatically improved aspect of the game. In one, it felt a bit like navigating Windows with a keyboard. You'd have to tap and scroll your ways to attack and defense options, with party commands hidden behind further shortcuts. 2 knows it's a console game, with different options assigned to different on-screen button commands, and just enough HUD information to keep you informed without overwhelming you. You can quickly fall into the familiar attack patterns that made the combat such a relaxing experience in previous games, but it's as deep and flexible as you're willing to make it for yourself. That's what Xenoblade always was for me. It's very flexible with how deeply you want to enjoy the game. You can pull yourself through the essential fights, visit the big locations and enjoy the story if you like. You can also focus on building your affinity levels with other characters, buying out each shop, or strengthening your blades through mercenary missions. There's a lot of entirely optional subsystems in here, and you can start engaging with them at any point in your lengthy journey. Xenoblade 2 is actually more flexible than 1 or X in the respect that you can often skip grinding if you like. Visit an inn for a night's sleep and you might be given the option to boost your character's experience levels. It's something that will appeal more to some than others, but that's true of everything in the game. It's very accommodating for anyone who's willing to give it a chance. In one major respect, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is something that I really wanted. It's a Xenoblade Chronicles sequel in HD and on a handheld system. There are moments of real beauty in the adventure, and it's a ridiculously effective time sink for when you're travelling. That's why I'm satisfied to give this so much credit in spite of the issues I have with it. It's just a nice game to have, a real asset to your Switch collection.